We have a July 8th meeting of the Conservation Commission. Please stand and salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
He plays that song Bad Boys over his loudspeaker. Tries on the river.
That's his entrance music.
Yeah. All right, so we have 4 soil permits tonight. First one is Kevin Candeas, number 452 to 832 Main Road.
Mr. Chairman, this is renewal of a soil permit for Kevin Candeas, 832 Main Road, soil permit number 452. Description: the owner has filed to renew the stockpile transfer site permit for the property at 832 Main Road. The site is in good working order. I recommend for the board, the Westport Conservation Soil Conservation Board should approve the soil permit number 452 for 1 year for Kevin Candeas.
Any questions? If not, a motion?
Motion approved. Second.
Jake and then Jason, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's unanimously on. Soil permit for River Falls, number 458, 251 State Road.
Mr. Chairman, River Falls Landscape, 251 State Road. This is again another renewal of soil permit number 458. This is a commercial location on State Road. The owner again has filed to renew the stockpile transfer site permit for the property. The site is again in good working order. Recommendations for the board: the Westport Conservation Soil Conservation Board should approve the soil permit number 458 for River Falls Landscaping for 1 year.
Motion?
Motion approved. Second.
Jake and Phil, all in favor? Opposed? All right, that's unanimously on. David Cabral, 453, 1665 Drift Road, soil permit.
Correct, Mr. Chairman. David Cabral, 1665 Drift Road, soil permit number 453. He has applied for a renewal for the stockpile transfer site permit that is located at his property at 1665 Drift Road. The site again is in good working order. Recommendations: the Westport Conservation Soil Conservation Board should approve the soil permit number 453 for David Cabral for 1 year.
All right,
Motion approved.
motion from Jake, second?
Second.
Second from Phil. All in favor? Opposed? All right. Pro Paving, number 498, 493 American Legion Highway.
Again, Mr. Chairman, this is the last one we have today, is Pro Paving. They are located in the commercial area, 493 American Legion Highway. This is soil permit number 498. Description: the owner has filed again to renew the stockpile transfer site permit for the property at 498 American Legion Highway. This site is also in good working order. Recommendations: Westport Conservation Soil Conservation Board should approve the soil permit number 498 for Pro Paving for 1 year.
Motion approved. Second.
Second from Phil. Does Jake and Phil, all in favor? Opposed? That's unanimously on. All right, pamphlet trip, notice of intent, 24 Valentine Lane, proposed dock and seawall improvements. Dave, how are you tonight? Good. Do you have any green cards for me tonight?
Yes, I do.
All right, good man. Thank you, sir. Whenever you're ready, you can start your presentation.
Mr. Chairman and Commission members, for the record, I'm Dave DeVignan from Schneider, DeVignan and Leone. I represent Pamela Tripp. She's with me this evening. She's the entire audience. So we filed a notice of intent on her behalf to perform improvements to the existing floating dock facility at the site and to perform some improvements to the existing stone and concrete seawall. The dock itself was initially put in place 33 years ago based upon a harbor master permit. It's a bottom anchored dock. The proposed improvements are to do multiple things. One, we had the eelgrass surveyed along, and this is a pretty intense area for eelgrass, I guess. One is to remove one of the floating docks so that we're shrinking it to get it out of the eelgrass. Number two, we're looking to install a couple of pilings to hold and anchor it in place horizontally rather than the bottom anchor chain system. In the last storm last year, the part of the chain system ripped apart. there's a timber, a landing that's attached to on land, and that'll remain in place. We're proposing to rotate it counterclockwise to also try and get some setback from the eelgrass bed. And lastly, in recognizing when filing notice of intent for any floating dock project, we have to submit it to the Division of Marine Fisheries, and we fully expect the comments to be such that we elevate the bottom of the float 30 inches above the substrate, which we're doing that. In this particular case, normally we would put pilings and put stubs to the pilings underneath the floats, but in this particular case, we know there's a ledge issue out there. We don't believe we can get a series of piles to do that. So we've designed a leg system with skids on either end of the floating, existing floating docks. So 3 will remain out of the 4. They'll all be fitted with float stops to elevate it 30 inches off the bottom. The second part of the project is the property is bordered from the river with a vertical stone and concrete seawall. It needs maintenance. It needs concrete put into the into the holes and cracks along the face. Both structures are not licensed by the Waterways Program, so we have submitted a Chapter 91 Waterways license application. Additionally, we have filed with the Army Corps of Engineers for the dock work. We do have a DEP file number. I think the only comment was that we should submit a license application, which is in motion. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Chris?
Mr. Chairman and members, this is Pamela Tripp, 24 Valentine Lane. This is a notice of intent application filed by Schneider, DeVignan, and Leone, with Dave DeVignan representing. Report date is July 7th, 2025. The file number with no adverse comments is SE 802805, issued from DEP. And also, as Dave mentioned, we did receive DMF comments, Division of Marine Fisheries, in favor of the proposed design. The site visit was also on July 7th, 2025. Description of the work: the applicant has filed to make changes to the existing float dock system at 24 Valentine's Lane. The previous docking float system is bottom anchored and rests on the bottom at low tide. The applicant is removing one float section to get it out of the eelgrass habitat and add 3 piles and retrofit float stops to maintain a 30-inch separation. As David mentioned, this is a series of legs that will sit on the bottom of the floats in order to maintain that separation. The floats will have 8x8 legs installed with skids attached on either end. This eelgrass habitat has been accurately mapped by Paul Caruso, a marine biologist, and is accurately represented, as you see, and modifications were needed to get out of that area. The dock will provide lateral access across the lawn to allow public passage. That's something that's also incorporated into the new licensing requirements, which may not have been descriptive here. This also will require signage in order for people that may be traversing that area to know what they can do in order to get by this location. Resource areas to be impacted are land under the river, land containing shellfish, riverfront, and a flood zone. Recommendations to the board: the Westport Conservation Commission should approve the new float system with 3 new piles and retrofit float stops to maintain the 30-inch separation rather than 30-foot separation with standard dock conditions. And also, I didn't include, was allow the seawall maintenance to repair in an existing location. That's all.
Dave, is the seawall gonna be raised at all, or just repointed?
Just pointed, repointed.
All right. Any of the floats on top of any eelgrass, would they need flow-through decking or see-through, or nothing? Or?
Nothing, no.
No.
Again, just shy, the last float was just in the area, so they are doing in the best interest to remove it totally and not consider any attempt to try to impede, which I guess you mentioned that it was slowly causing some adverse effect, right?
Correct.
Yes, so this is in the best interest. And it is a flourishing area of eelgrass, David, that whole side.
Get some good scallops over there eventually.
Eventually, if we can get a good year.
All right, anybody else have questions?
What is the seawall restoration reflected in the plan?
It is, there's a detail
Okay.
up here in the upper right-hand corner.
Okay, all right, great.
There was a text on top of text, I submitted a revised plan, right in this location was described it. If you were looking at the plan, I noticed it, that's before I came over here and was looking at the
So
plan.
we have the revised,
Yeah,
and it does give the revision date of today, right?
it does, yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
Anybody else? All right, if not a motion?
Motion to approve?
I second it.
Kevin and Bert, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's unanimous, now. Thank you, Dave.
Here's time.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next, so we have Ron Olivera, Vaz Road Realty Trust, Francis Estate, Charlevoix Road, construct stormwater infrastructure grading and buffer zone, and that is gonna be continued to when, Chris?
7/22, July
So I need a
22nd.
motion to continue to, next meeting, which is July 22nd.
So moved.
Phil and Jake, all in favor? Opposed? All right, that's unanimous, so thank you. That's it for the, let's see what we go, let's see what we have. East Bay Media Advertising, $123. I need a motion to pay.
Motion to pay.
Jason and Jake, all in favor? Opposed? That's unanimously owned. Minutes from 6:10, let's see, Jason, Jake, Kevin, Phil. Oh, so we can actually do this. So 6:10, we need a motion, so that was, so basically everybody but Bert and myself were not here. So we need a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right, I'll let you sign that, too. Make yourself feel important. When we get sued, they'll go after you.
We had leadership that night.
Yeah.
Amazing leadership.
Clean.
I actually,
organized.
it was funny, when I got home that night, I got a bucket of popcorn and watched it. It was like watching a comedy. All right,
And my stipend was doubled for that meeting too.
yeah. Next, we have 6:24 minutes, which are myself, Jason, Jake, Burton.
0 times 2.
Okay. So we need a motion to accept the 6:24 minutes.
Motion to approve.
We have a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Bert. All in favor? Opposed?
I
All right.
abstained.
And, yeah, and, anyone else? Who was abstaining?
Was I there? I don't think I was there.
I don't know, were you? I mean,
think Phil was-
physically you weren't, Phil, but I'm sure in
I think I
spirit.
was married then.
Yeah, you were. You were not here.
Okay.
You were here, Kevin, weren't you? Oh, no, you weren't here. Were you at Harbor Master Training?
This one meeting in June, but I
We
think
actually,
that
the
was.
storms.
Time and a half after
Can you
four,
just
so-
spring into action with the storms?
All right, so that takes care of everything that I have to do for you, but Chris, I'm sure you have a notebook full of stuff to do.
I don't have a notebook.
Kevin and, Phil, Kevin and Phil.
I submitted to the commission members a well testing report submitted from Peter, I forget his last name.
Peter,
The main road, basically for
Main Road Quarry property
Yeah.
for what we had concerns with drawdown of the river as well as drawdown of the wetland systems. This report needs to be reviewed, and George Campbell, Environmental, who we had in the past, is aware of it, but he's requesting that also we get a vote of approval to allow him 8 to 10 hours of review for the purpose of coming back with some comments and concerns. That would come out, we previously have contracted him for
That's
this, up to this date. I don't expect it to exceed $1,000,
No, you should take it out of
Cost.
take it out of the Board of Health stipend.
and we'll take it out of the Board of Health stipend.
So we need a motion to.
such as it is.
Can we approve 8?
We need,
10, can we, because if we know it's 8 to 10, it's not gonna be 8, it's gonna be 10.
well, that's, we wanna get it done right.
No, yeah, say
Okay.
10 hours of
Okay.
We need
review
a motion
time.
to pay George Campbell up to 10 hours of time to review. There was a lot, there was a lot of information there.
Good.
So, someone wanna say so moved?
So just a question. I mean, this project has gone on for so many years. We've had 30-party reviews and all kinds of, so, is George Campbell working for
Us.
He's working on our behalf now.
Right.
This is not part of a third-party review.
No,
He is,
no,
but
no.
that-
No.
Okay, okay.
He's working on our behalf. Remember now, this project still doesn't have a superseding order of conditions. So never mind what the well does, they haven't done any replication, they haven't done anything to move, and their order is probably more than 3 years old already, but the state has never issued them a superseding. So this project is still in a standstill, so
Is the applicant even the same?
I don't know.
No,
Do
I
we
think.
know who the applicant is?
There's a realty trust that owns it now. 5-something Realty Trust has taken it over. And that was the associate partner that Mr. Corey had in the project the whole time.
And that remains.
That remains, that
ownership.
individual still remains in paying taxes on the property.
So let me get him, let's just get, I'm sorry, go ahead, Phil.
No, no, so the one, so I had a brief exchange with George Campbell and Chris on email in which George gave us, his kind of preliminary reaction to the withdrawal as far as having sufficient capacity for the use, and he thought that, and it was taken during a drought period, he thought, that essentially they wouldn't have a problem, running the pumps in terms of providing adequate capacity, but he didn't really comment on I think what was really the focus was what's impact going to be on Alewife Brook. And so what I suggested was, rather than, as far as I guess the timing goes, is rather than him giving us just the analysis of what the applicant's consultant had done, that because the Buzzards Bay Coalition had hired their own hydrogeologist, Chris could reach out, and anyway, that we should wait to get both, to find out if Buzzards Bay hydrogeologist is going to comment on it, and then George should look at both sets of comments, because we're going to be able, to make a decision looking at both the applicants and I guess the interveners, hydrogeologist, and because whatever we do, we're probably going to be putting a bunch of conditions, I would think, on what we want. It would just help to have both sides rather than, making a decision now how many hours it would be just by looking at the other guys, because we're not going to be able to evaluate what their hydrogeologist said. I mean,
Well,
the people at this table won't be able to, so we're going to need to hear both of it.
I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but I don't think we should, if Buzzards Bay wants to get their comments in, they need to get their comments in. I'm not waiting 2 months for them to get their comments in.
Yeah, so I just think we can, find out. We could reach out to them, either Chris or I could, and just say, okay, are you going to submit comments, and what's your timetable for submitting the comments, so we would know that, rather than
Or we can give them a timetable.
because the last time it was clear that Buzzards Bay had disagreed with a lot of the methodology that had been used, and it would just be good for them to put their cards on the table so that we would know that when we made our decision.
But this has been so long ago, I forget, but didn't the state get involved and look at the methodology? Someone from the state look at it and I'm not gonna say approve, but look at it and didn't have any necessarily
The
negative.
well review is for public water supply, were the ones that had some input stating that they felt the procedures were done correctly, but I think in the end, they made these modifications to allow this piezometers and testing to be done.
Yeah, well, when we first got it in front of us, when George and his hydrogeologist looked at it, it turned out that rather than providing the data on the withdrawal from two different wells, they just provided the data from one well and called it two. And so that's when we, in our denial, and then the appeal to the, for the wetlands part of it, said, well, the water division over there kind of messed it up because they had not submitted accurate data. They had claimed that they had tested both wells. They do these 72-hour pump runs, but they hadn't. And then, and basically our consultant just kind of tore to shreds what the other consultant had represented for a bunch of different things about bedrock and, you know, a whole bunch of things. And so that's just sitting over there now, but it really goes to the water part of it, not so much to the wetlands part of it, right? But then this issue came up about the impact to Angeline Brook, and that's where we got into the piezometers and setting up and measuring the impact on the
Stream, correct.
on the stream while this testing was going on, and so George's preliminary comments just related to, I think, his saying, just scanning, you know, what it said, it seems like the well testing was done appropriately, but I don't think he even looked at the, because it wasn't, this is like the day after his report landed, and yeah, it's pretty massive.
He's not gonna be back till that gentleman until the end of the month anyway, so.
Yeah, and there's nothing, I mean, they haven't filed
Operation.
you know, a separate request to allow us to approve operation of the wells.
Right.
And that's when it's gonna come back, but
Correct.
I just thought.
All right, well, that's okay.
more
Can you reach out?
conservative use.
Yeah, reach out to
That's
Buzzards.
where it is right now.
Yeah,
Reach out
I
to
think
Buzz.
we can-
I can send a corresponding to Buzzards Bay and make sure that they have received the same documents.
Yeah, but I think, I think we ask them, you know, what their timetable is to respond.
I'll forward it to Corinne and she'll probably.
Yeah.
pass it
Just
on.
say, you know, what's
Tell
the
him,
plan,
yeah,
because-
we don't wanna wait 2 months for comments.
No, that's
Yeah.
understandable, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah,
We
I
wanna
think
get-
we
we
should
wanna-
just, you know, can be transparent and say, you know,
We've waited 8 years for a replication, Mr. Chairman,
yeah.
and it's still not done.
Thank you for reminding us.
Does the,
Yeah.
this may not be relevant, but I'll ask anyway, does the, capacity with which the applicant represents himself in this project have any bearing? Well, we had a lawyer.
Not at this
Oh,
time.
no, he was, it just says
No,
on
Just, okay.
Not at this time.
Not yet, no.
So we can make a motion to approve.
Well,
that.
I don't think we should, at this point, then, if you wanna, also, if you wanna have him review, Buzzards Bay comments,
After the Buzzards Bay.
I mean, is Buzzards Bay gonna pay to have this, to have, George Campbell review their comments, and
No.
No, but I would,
Board of Health?
I think it's reasonable to assume that Buzzards Bay is going to appeal a decision that allowed for the wells to start operating. And that the basis for that appeal will be their hydrogeologist's report. And that so that the decision that we would make on that, whether we would approve the operation or deny it, it would help to have George's analysis to back up our decision. You know,
But
and
if
so
they're
I
gonna-
thought if he's gonna.
But if they're gonna appeal our decision, if you think they're gonna appeal it no matter what, why would they give us their report then? Why wouldn't they just hold the cards, and why would they, I mean, I
Well,
don't,
I
I wouldn't
think
give.
I think they're gonna make the case to us. I mean, I'm just speculating, and I'm just doing it. I'm assuming, so let's just assume that they were going to try to convince us to deny the application, based on its impact on Angeline Brook. And I was just thinking, rather than having George go through just Dylan is the hydrogeologist, through Peter Dillon's hydro analysis and just give his opinion of that. And then later on have Buzzards Bay come in and then go back and have him look at that, it might be just helpful to have them both together in front of
Well-
them, so then he would say, okay, here's my
Okay,
opinion
but
about-"
that's assuming that Buzz Bay will give us their report.
That's, yeah.
Okay, so
Well,
why don't you ask Buzz Bay if they're
yeah,
gonna give us
I
their,
think
they're gonna give us
I
their
think-
comments.
Yeah, they're not, because nothing's in front of us now, and so they could say, well, we're gonna wait and see.
All right, let's,
And
let,
that'd be good to know.
Do you want me to wait to
No, let's-
tell George to do his evaluation?
no, he's gonna have to do he's gonna have to do evaluation of the report anyway, and then he can look at Buzz's Bay.
Okay,
If
yeah,
they give it to
yeah.
us, so let's just do the
Okay.
10-hour,
Yeah,
up to 10 hours for George to review
there we go.
their,
Peter Dillon's
what's his name,
report.
Peter Dillon's report.
Peter Dillon's
And then
report.
if Buzz's Bay decides they wanna give us their report, should they wanna give it to us, we can allocate more money at our next meeting to,
Yeah, because they
review
might not
those.
do it.
Perfect.
That's fine.
Do it.
All right, so 10 hours, so we're looking for a motion to allow up to 10 hours for George Campbell to review the report provided to us by Peter Dillon?
Provided by Peter Dillon.
Peter Dillon, on
funds
behalf-
coming From the wetlands.
Yeah, on behalf of the applicant, the report's was done by Peter Dillon on behalf of the applicant, and we paid for it from our wetlands funds.
Correct.
So moved.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second from Kevin, all in favor?
All right.
Okay, that's unanimous, so.
So there you go, bro.
Chairman, I just have a quick question for Chris. So in a situation like this, we're dealing with a public water supply, you know, that they're gonna, you know, maybe move forward with development. How is that any different than the situation where we're having developments nonstop through town that are putting in 25, 30 houses that are tapping the, you know, basically water resources on the ground, and we don't do an analysis on really the impacts?
It shouldn't, it should be, it should be the same.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I think the biggest concern in a town like Westport is the water supply with the increased building. So if you put in a development, shouldn't there be some sort of, if you're near a wetlands or if you're near a brook or a stream, shouldn't there be some other analysis that we could do in order to look at how that's going to draw down on the water table? Because this is a small project compared
It's
to
almost
something
like an
else.
after the fact effect, though. The commission has the right to come back at somebody after the fact if something has been proven to have caused an adverse effect. So for us to make that assumption is difficult without some sort of data available, but that also may be, for a single-family house, I think it's not necessarily
No,
warranted,
Yeah,
but,
But if you have
but
20,
for,
if you have 25 wells drawn off the same aquifer,
Yes.
and this is gonna be, let's say, I don't know what they're doing, let's say they put up apartments, let's say they put
let-
20 apartments up.
let's make a
What's the
reference to
difference?
the Pine Ridge Estates.
Yeah.
They're proposing
Correct.
38 homes, all individually fed from wells.
With
We
wetlands.
may be able to ask them to do some study
Okay.
for the fact that they could be depleting the wetland down gradient. But then again, they'll make the argument they're tapping into the deep bedrock aquifer and not necessarily the surface contribution to some of that wetland. But wetlands are also fed from groundwater intrusions, and that's how you get them seeps and et cetera that occur. So I don't see why we couldn't,
Yeah.
because they're trying to skate under the requirements.
Correct.
By not having that one should have a public water
Yes.
supply, but they don't wanna go through that.
Correct. Okay.
Well, how about the new well that was proposed up in the harbor? Wasn't that, did
That
we,
was going to be a public water supply.
That was, well, yes, that as well went through some design requirements.
But
But
did-
they were proposing, what they ended up doing in the end was not what initially that they were searching for. They were physically searching for a viable public water supply, and in turn, they ended up at the point they started from.
well, I guess what Jake's saying, and if we're gonna do this, we should be
It should be consistent.
consistent.
I truly understand, that's agreeable.
Because I know the argument is that tapping into the water supply in the bedrock, but that's not also an infinite source of water, right?
No, it is not, but, and it's also impacted by each individual
Correct.
on how much that one's using in relation to what you're using, so yes.
And
I agree with you, we should be consistent, especially when there may be a stream down gradient, or there is, not necessarily on a single family, but
No.
more of
Yes.
a complex drawer of water, or need of water.
Okay.
So,
go ahead. Go ahead, Phil.
no, I was just gonna say, I used to know this off the top of my head when we were looking at this before, but my recollection is that the wetlands regulations, don't treat groundwater as a protected resource under the Wetlands Protection
It's
Act.
only an interest in the area to
Yeah, it's
protect.
and so they don't have the typical kind of performance standards that you would use for other, but they do have this reference to kind of, and this is the verbiage that I don't remember, but kind of like maximizing protection.
Like water
You know,
quality, water
You know,
supply.
so they, yeah, because they recognize that, like here, that it's mostly focused on public wells. That public wells, they don't prohibit public wells being sited in wetlands, in wetlands resource area, but they do give us the opportunity, to look at how impacts are going to be minimized.
Okay.
And at least that's kind of my recollection. And so I think that's our, it's kind of, going to be the focus of our, what we will do, I think, is how we're going to, assuming that getting their permit from DEP on the water supply side, it's going to leave up to us. And they have this very high standard for cold water fisheries. Normally you have to do a cold water fishery, but you have to be pumping like 10,000 gallons,
Yes.
whatever it is, and they're doing like 10. I mean, they're way below the threshold.
Correct.
And so it kind of fell to us to look at, okay, what are the wetlands regulations say about particularly protecting the cold water fisheries?
Where are the regulations for cold water fisheries?
Well, it's a funny, it's like, and again, I'm a little rusty because it's been a while. I mean, there's a reference to cold water fisheries being an interest of the Act to protect that. But again, there's no
Right.
standards that gives us the authority to say, okay, we can deny you this because we think it has an impact on cold water fisheries, or like demand they do this study, at least if it's a public water supply, because there's a threshold that's established by their regulations that the withdrawal is. But that also relates to what we, what the hydrogeological analysis was when they do this intensive pumping. One of the things they look at out of it is how quickly did it take for the well to come back level, and I think, and again, just my scanning of it and a little bit of George's reaction was, yeah, that's not a problem. Like it actually, the pump borehole refilled in a very short period of time, meaning that, in the bedrock there was a lot of water available at a period of time where, the area was under, I don't know what level of drought, but it was a dry period overall. So, anyway, we just have to get our feet wet again, figure out what's going on.
Maybe not, if there's no water.
Chris,
But,
what else,
I can
That's
talk
it?
to you about the.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
We have a second?
Second.
Second from Jason, all in favor? Opposed? That's unanimously. Thank you, Valerie.
Election